Spend less time packing and more time skydiving. Pack Like a Pro contains the latest and most efficient packing techniques for Ram Air main canopies. Pack faster, pack better. Pack like a pro. Fly Like a Pro contains demonstrations of various canopy flight procedures and techniques that can be used in a variety of situations. Since it is not a complete course of instruction in canopy control, Fly Like a Pro is intended as a supplement to your initial training and the owner's manual for your specific canopy. Interview material in this video is solely the personal opinion of each expert and does not reflect an endorsement of others' opinions or of this entire program. Each year, hundreds of skydivers impact each other or the ground at high speed and are either seriously injured or permanently crippled. Tragically, each year a handful of skydivers end their jumping careers permanently under fully open and functional main parachutes. Safe Ram Air flight is dependent on pilot skill and the proper attitude. It is the intent of this program to help you develop both. For Fly Like a Pro, hear video, talk to the experts to define safe Ram Air pilot techniques. John LeBlanc, Ram Air designer and vice president of Performance Designs. Rob Laidlaw, president of Skydive University. Nancy LaRiviere, world-class style and accuracy champion. Mike McGuire, AFF instructor and tandem instructor examiner. Gus Wing, world-class crew and freefall photographer. And Kevin Gibson, safety and training advisor, pilot, and drop zone owner. This program brings you the combined experience of over 114 years of skydiving and more than 29,000 jumps. So sit back, relax, and enjoy as these skydiving professionals help you fly like a pro. The Ram Air is an inflatable glider pressurized from the airflow into its open leading edge. The airfoil shape develops lift, which lowers the rate of descent and produces forward speed. Additional forces in flight are gravity and drag. Every skydiver knows the effect of gravity. Drag is produced by air friction acting on the wing, the lines, and the pilot. The size and shape of the wing, the airfoil, and the flying speed all affect the amount of lift and drag the wing produces. The steering toggles are the primary Ram Air controls, and they're used to turn and apply brakes. Flying in light brakes creates additional lift and drag, slowing both the rate of descent and the airspeed. This usually results in a flatter glide. Flight in deeper brakes continues to slow the rate of descent and the airspeed until a point where the trend reverses and the rate of descent increases in a sink. Further braking causes a stall, even though the wing still has some airspeed. Pulling one toggle affects only one side of the wing, and the imbalance in lift and drag from one side of the wing to the other causes a turn. A slight toggle extension causes a gradual, shallow bank turn with a minimum loss of altitude and airspeed. As the toggle is extended further, the turn rate and bank angle increase until the canopy enters a high-speed diving spiral with a significant loss of altitude. A hook turn done at altitude can be lots of fun. Done too low, it's a killer. The risers are the secondary Ram Air controls, and like the toggles, they are very effective. Pulling both back risers increases lift and drag, slowing both the rate of descent and forward speed. For safety, when using the front risers, keep the toggles in your hands at all times. Pulling both front risers reduces lift and increases airspeed. You're in a dive. Pulling down one front riser causes a diving turn. Pulling down one back riser causes a turn similar to using a toggle, but with a shorter control range.
In order to safely pilot a ram air, it's important to understand the difference between ground speed and airspeed.
The airflow you feel in flight is due to airspeed. A ram air needs airspeed to maintain the airfoil shape and develop lift. Generally speaking, airspeed is not affected by the strength of the wind or your direction of travel. The horizontal movement you feel on landing is due to ground speed. The strength of the wind, airspeed, and direction of travel determine your ground speed. When you're traveling downwind, your ground speed equals your airspeed plus the wind speed. Your ground speed is the highest traveling downwind. When you're traveling upwind, your ground speed is the difference between the airspeed and the wind speed. Since your ground speed is the slowest, it's always best to land facing into the wind.
All ram airs require airspeed to fly and develop lift. On no-wind days, be prepared to take a few steps when you land.
The most common problem I see with novices in canopy control is that they lack confidence flying the canopy in deep breaks. That becomes more of a problem as they start going to smaller canopies as they gain more experience, more jumps rather than more experience. They never feel confident flying their canopy slowly to begin with. It takes a while to get a comfortable feeling with a canopy flying in breaks. It's quiet, it feels soggy and mushy, you're afraid you're going to stall. The point is you need to gain the skill of flying through the entire performance range of the parachute. And if you want to go faster and faster and faster by going to a smaller parachute, it's even more important that you learn the low speed handling of what you're on, because low speed handling is going to get more tricky on the parachute that you're going to if it's a smaller parachute.
On this jump, you'll see the fundamentals of safe ram air flight for a correct opening point. Before you become involved in the skydive, take a moment to check the local conditions. In particular, determine the wind direction and the approximate speed. A dancing windsock is a sign of erratic winds which may produce turbulence. Clouds can provide a good indication of the speed and direction of the upper winds, which may be different from the ground winds. Check the forecast winds aloft, available from the nearest FAA flight service station. Use the speed and direction of the ground wind and winds aloft to plan the opening point. A good rule of thumb is to extend the opening point about a quarter mile directly upwind for every 5 miles an hour of wind speed.
The winds are almost 20, so we need to be getting out here.
Observe canopies in the air to confirm your opening point is correct.
All right, that first group looks okay, but the second group looks a little long.
Things are looking pretty good. All we need now is someone to fill out the load.
Here's the guy. Let's talk to him. Hey, guys, what's up?
You want to make a jump?
Yeah, that'd be great, man.
All right, there's our fourth.
Some four-way.
Four-way?
Excellent.
During the dirt dive, practice the entire jump, including the ram air flight. Agree on break-off and traffic pattern procedures on the ground. That way, everyone will be on the same sheet of music in the air. When you plan your pattern, pick a landing zone with enough clear space for your skill level.
All right, and back to the star, guys. There's the end of the skydive, 4,000 feet, 180, flat track away from the center, keeping it safe.
Take time on the climb out to glance at the ground and check the spot to make sure you are near the planned exit point.
Come on, you guys.
Billy,
Billy,
get off my foot, Billy.
Okay, ready, set,
Ready,
go.
go.
Hey, guys, wait!
I can't believe where you going. Turn around. Look at that guy flounder.
Okay, get the two-way.
All right, we got it.
I'm getting in there. I'm getting in there.
Dave,
Here comes
come on, let's
Dave.
go,
You
man.
were standing on my foot. What do you
Come on.
expect?
Remember, the winds aloft may be different than the forecast. High upper winds may drift you a considerable distance, so if you have a few seconds during the dive, glance down at the ground to check the spot, as well as verify your altitude.
Look at him.
Straighten your feet out.
Come on.
Come on, Billy.
Whoa!
Billy,
Oh.
over here, not there.
Okay, I gotta get in. Okay, here I go.
Straighten your legs out.
I'm trying.
Straighten them out, stop swimming, Billy!
Shut up, I can fly.
You're getting it. Come on.
Okay.
A little
okay.
more.
I'm getting closer.
A little more.
Okay, I'm already
Come
done.
on,
Yeah.
down.
Woo,
All
man,
right.
yeehaw, this is great.
All right.
Mentally, prepare yourself for the break-off. When it's time, turn away from the center and flat track for maximum separation. During the opening, reach up and grab the rear risers.
Look out, look out.
Scan the airspace for other traffic and be prepared to execute a rear riser turn to avoid a collision. If you need to, use the rear risers to bring the slider down and inflate collapsed end cells. Then check your canopy, release the brakes, and do a control check. Next, determine if the opening point was accurate. Check for traffic, turn downwind, and judge your ability to use the primary landing area.
I use the accuracy trick, as I call it, to help me determine whether I can make it back to a landing area.
Pick a point on the ground quite close to you. If the angle to that point becomes steeper in your field of vision, that means you'll fly over it. If you pick a point further out toward the horizon and the visual angle to that spot seems to flatten out, that means you'll land short. Somewhere in between, you'll find a point on the ground that doesn't move up or down. It just keeps getting closer. That is where you are going. If that stationary point is a good distance beyond the landing area, that means you can make it back. Hold and run as necessary to maintain an ideal position to use your selected landing area. Flying at slow speeds is an important skill since you need to fly slow to land. Practice this at every opportunity until you are completely comfortable flying in brakes. Pull the toggles down to about chest level and take note of the sound, control feel, and sensations you experience. You'll notice that turns while flying in brakes are very effective and can be made with the low bank angle and minimum altitude loss. Pull the toggles down to deep brakes. You're probably very near the minimum flying speed. A good turning technique is to let a toggle up. Pulling a toggle down might cause a stall turn. Not a good thing if you're close to the ground. Slow flight is comfortable if you're proficient in stalls and stall recovery. From deep brakes, extend the toggles until you feel the wing rock back and drop as lift is lost in the stall. Recover by easing the toggles up until you're flying again. Smooth control movements during the stall entry and recovery keep you from rocking and rolling. Thoroughly investigate the turn, brake, and stall modes on subsequent jumps, and practice any other maneuvers recommended by the Ram Air Owner's Manual. For safety, stay away from other traffic and practice flight maneuvers above 1,000 feet. As you near the landing area, choose your pattern and touchdown point based on other traffic, your altitude, and the ground winds.
That's the first thing is, be able to have a plan to run a downwind, a crosswind or base leg, and then turn into final.
It's best to fly a square approach pattern in low winds. The altitudes you fly will depend on your experience level.
Traditionally, it's always been advised at 1,000 feet you start to head downwind. Somewhere at about 600 to 500 you should turn crosswind. And then somewhere about 500 down to 300 feet you should be turned into the wind.
In medium winds, fly a tighter pattern. The downwind should be closer to the wind line, which will shorten the base leg. The final approach also needs to be shorter since you have a reduced ability to penetrate into the wind. In high winds, enter the pattern much further upwind of the landing area because your ground speed will be very high on the downwind. Fly the pattern close to where you want to land since the wind will affect your ability to go where you want to. In fact, you may barely be able to hold. Maintain your spacing with other traffic as you enter the downwind. If the landing area is busy, fly in brakes to delay your arrival time since vertical separation provides you with the greatest safety margin. When the target is about 45 degrees over your shoulder, turn onto the base leg. If you've planned ahead, you should have good spacing with other traffic. Fly the final approach headed directly into the wind. Use the accuracy trick to find your landing point and note your approach angle to this point. When you can recognize the correct approach angle, you'll find it relatively easy to land where you want to.
If you think of better landings in terms of getting softer landings, one of the most important things is to make sure you choose a sensible canopy size. Something that's not something that you have to run like crazy to land, something that has a little bit of forgiveness in it. That goes a long way. The second thing is to practice the landing flare on every jump and try to work on squeezing the last little bit of low speed performance out of your parachute at the very end of your landing flare. That doesn't mean push the toggles down all the way, because that might destroy the low speed characteristics that it has. It means keeping that canopy floating along at the lowest possible speed at the very end of your landing. And also, when you actually put your feet on the ground, continue to fly the parachute so that the harness is supporting your weight as you put your feet on the ground.
It's sort of like being sensitive or in tune with your canopy and equipment and being able to feel the forces during the flare. So the flare isn't just mechanical action, it's bringing the toggles down at a speed and a distance until you feel that you're getting an effective amount of lift out of the canopy to be sufficient to flatten you out, and that's where it would be. And that's not something that's easy to teach. That's something that has to be practiced, and probably best by, playing with the canopy up high and just trying to take note and being aware of how the canopy responds, over and over again on landings until you find, what some people might term as the sweet spot.
During the flare, the wing's lift and drag increase dramatically as energy from the glide is used to slow the forward speed and rate of descent. The Ram Air pilot uses both seat-of-the-pants feel and visual cues to time the flare for the softest landing. The exact technique depends on the efficiency and airspeed of the wing. Small, high-efficiency Ram Airs have low drag and react quickly due to their efficient wing shape and higher flight speed. As the toggles are extended, the glide immediately levels out and you'll float as the airspeed dissipates. Skim just above the ground by applying additional brakes to maintain a zero rate of descent. As the best landing speed is approached, a slight sink is your signal to step down. Large, lightly loaded wings need time to react to control movements and have little excess energy for the flare. You'll have to experiment to find the sweet spot, the amount of toggle extension that gives you the softest landing. Smoothly bring the toggles down a good amount to slow the airspeed and descent just above ground level. Apply additional brakes to keep flying as long as possible, but land before the wing sinks or stalls. If you bring the toggles down too far, by the time the wing reacts, you'll realize too late you've just flown through the sweet spot and missed out on a great landing. Learn to fly a large Ram Air with authority, experiment to find the sweet spot, and the transition to a more demanding Ram Air will be a piece of cake.
One of the most common errors in flaring the parachute is that people aren't aware of what they're really doing with the toggles in their hands. They have a certain idea or concept in their head of how far to pull the toggles, how fast to pull the toggles, and when to pull the toggles. But there comes a time just prior to putting their feet on the ground that they forget about what they're really doing with their toggles, and they start thinking about putting their feet on the ground. And they move their toggles around in all sorts of strange ways, and that causes hard landings. Another one is flaring the parachute such that it levels off too high above the ground, where they're coasting along 3 or 4 feet in the air. You can't land 3 or 4 feet in the air, you have to land on the ground. So if you want your softest landing, you'll have the parachute level off with your feet within touching distance of the ground.
When you flare, keep your hands slightly out in front so you can see that they are evenly extended. That way, you'll fly straight ahead and have a better landing. On this jump, you'll be introduced to large aircraft exit planning and canopy flight techniques for downwind opening points. Large aircraft present new considerations for the skydiver. Plenty of spacing must be created between each group's exit to assure safe separation on opening. Due to a combination of factors, the larger the group and the higher the winds aloft, the more spacing that's required. Experience has shown that the exit order should be arranged from large groups to small, regardless of fall rate, with AFF, tandems, and any other high openings going last. For safety, sky surfers must exit over an uninhabited area in case it's necessary to release the board. Although exiting first is more convenient, some drop zones prefer board flyers exit last with the rest of the higher openings. Drop zones that operate large aircraft have policies on all these situations, so ask if you have any questions. On this jump, the aircraft will fly into the wind on jump run, so each group's exit point depends on their position in the lineup. Our sky surfer will exit first at a point which will assure landing in a safe area, but probably require heading into the wind almost the entire way. The exit point is planned after watching the previous load and considering canopy performance, the wind speed, and alternate landing areas. Check the exit point prior to leaving the aircraft. Ensure you can make a safe landing in the event you don't make it back to the drop zone. In free fall, check for drift and check your altitude from time to time as well. As always, stay aware of other traffic during the opening sequence and be prepared to take evasive action if it's necessary. When you're in the clear, complete the after-opening routine. If you did a high fall rate skydive and opened downwind, it's a good idea to fly perpendicular to the wind line until the following group opens. Once you're clear of traffic, face the target and use the accuracy trick to see if you can make it to the landing area. Divert to the alternate if it's necessary, or continue the approach if it's clear all the way to the target. In light winds, experiment to find the technique that gives your ram air the furthest glide. Pull down the rear risers and use the accuracy trick to find the position that works the best for that particular wind condition. You'll find that the control range with rear risers is quite short. Next, find the toggle position that produces the flattest glide for the existing winds. With some canopy designs, you might be surprised to find that a significant amount of brakes continues to improve your glide even though you are faced into the wind. Using the toggles or risers, you can increase gliding efficiency by pulling up your legs to lower the wind drag. Stowing the slider and using a collapsible pilot chute also improve your gliding performance. If you're short of the landing area in high winds, you may need to use the front risers. Dive blocks or dive loops will help you get a better grip. For safety, always keep the toggles in your hands. The steering line should be long enough to allow front riser use without pulling the tail down. On a windy day, you may encounter turbulence. If this happens, use the flight technique the manufacturer recommends for your canopy. We'll talk to the experts about turbulence and front risers right after this jump. Throughout your descent, use the accuracy trick to plan your approach. If the stationary point is very near the target and you're downwind, you'll need to fly straight ahead to land. If you've exited early, you should be able to land early and avoid traffic. A stationary point considerably beyond the target means you can at least fly some kind of pattern. For instance, you might elect to swing off to one side and fly a base and final. As you fly the pattern, consider your position and other traffic when you select your runway for landing. If it's windy and there are upwind obstacles, land off to the side to avoid turbulence. Otherwise, land considerably short. At least 10 times the height of the obstruction is a good rule of thumb. The best way to handle low-level turbulence is avoid it.
Bubba.
You're back.
We were like right there. Oh man, right off the door.
We asked the experts when to use the front risers.
Whenever you want to have a whopping good time. The other time to use front risers, of course, is if you're faced into a very strong wind and you don't have good landing areas behind you and you want to get down as quickly as you can. You use both front risers and bring yourself down a little quicker to get yourself out of the wind. It may penetrate you into the wind better and it may not. It just depends on your parachute.
If you want to gain more vertical speed, to either prevent yourself from backing up in high wind, say, you're afraid of backing off the airport, it'll get you down faster. It doesn't really make you go forward more, but it prevents you from going backward more because you're getting down faster. It also makes you a little bit more susceptible to turbulence on a high wind day if you're going that fast.
Probably front riser use is best when you are in a holding situation with the wind speed that's a little bit high. You'd want to be again have to understand the canopy and how the front riser use works. And is there any problems with using it, and is there any turbulence? In steady conditions, let's say if it's just steady conditions, you just had a nice, just a strong wind, steady, you felt like you're a little short, you felt like, maybe not backing up, but you just wanted to hold up wind a little bit. Then using the front risers to just drop yourself down and accelerate down would be a wise idea.
The point of the skydive, the free fall, is to get together on the same level. And afterwards, we want to get away from each other. That's the point. Vertical separation is the easiest, simplest way of keeping people from running into each other, is that the low people get down first, and the middle people get down next, and the people on top slow themselves down and wait. It becomes a really crowded, exciting little place to be. The last 200 feet is a very, the last few hundred feet of your canopy ride is a very, very busy time. Then you have to look around, you have to be aware where everyone is. You have to be aware of the wind conditions before you get to that place. You have to know where everyone is setting up and who's chasing you around, who's trying to catch you and kill you. And this is where everyone is converging on the drop zone, and it could be a traffic jam right there. It could be a big collision. It could be a big pileup. So you have to prepare ahead of time, clear your space, look around. Don't let anybody hit you. Don't let anybody take you out.
Mention large aircraft and large formations probably come to mind. On this jump, you'll learn techniques for long spots and group landings. In planning the exit point, a large group brings additional factors into play.
Frank, you're going to have your head out the door, and it looks like it's going to take us 25 or 30 seconds to climb out, so this is probably a good place as we come across the P's. Start getting us out here, we'll exit over the road or just past it and open there, and of course the wind's going to bring us back to the landing area.
All right.
Go Skydive.
To keep it safe, a cooperative attitude is required of everyone on the load. During the dirt dive, practice the entire jump, including the break-off, and thoroughly discuss the ram air flight procedures.
Once again, in the interest of safety, when we get our separation and open, the stack is going to be such that some canopies are high and some canopies are in the middle of the stack, some canopies down low. If you find yourself down low, we'd like to have you land out here, first, because you are lowest in the stack. The people in the middle, no spiraling down to try and beat the people down low. And the people up high, why don't you go ahead and stay out there for a while and get in breaks and maybe stay up for a little while and have a canopy ride.
The important point is to have a plan, one that everyone knows and agrees to follow. If you're a floater or have a few seconds in the door, check the aircraft position during the lineup and climb out. On the break-off, turn away from the center and flat track for all you're worth. Your survival depends on this. A good wave-off signals your intent to deploy. During the opening, keep your hands on the rear risers and be prepared to make an immediate turn to avoid a collision if necessary. This is no time to be daydreaming. Once you're in the clear, complete the after-opening routine, determine your position and altitude relative to the group, and use the accuracy trick to decide your landing options. If you're low and close to the target, you can use front risers to quickly lose altitude, increase separation, and arrive early. If you're high and far upwind, use the rear risers or toggles to minimize your descent rate, increase separation, and delay your arrival at the landing area. A lower rate of descent allows a tailwind to affect your flight path longer and helps you make it back from a long spot. On hot summer days, be alert for bumpy air, which signals the presence of thermals, rising columns of air caused by hotter areas on the surface. The bumps you feel are from entering the lift in the thermals and flying through the sink that surrounds them. Dark runways and ramp areas generate particularly strong thermals, and riding this lift can often save you a walk back from a bad spot. Wing loading is an important factor in group landings. If your wing loading is high, fly at full flight or front riser down and land early. Just make sure you don't cut in front of others and add to the congestion. If your wing loading is light or you're near the top of the group, float in brakes and watch for a developing gap in the traffic below you. Then fly down into the gap and sequence with other traffic. If it looks too busy in the primary landing area, consider using your alternate. The landing pattern funnels all the traffic into close proximity within a very short time span. As you enter the pattern, constantly scan for traffic in all directions, including behind you. For safety, fly predictably and avoid radical maneuvers. If there are no established traffic procedures, select a pattern based on your speed, position, and type of approach. If there's a target in the landing area, consider the wind line as no man's land, reserved for traffic approaching from downwind openings and accuracy jumpers. If you're left of the landing area, stay there and fly a pattern on that side of the wind line. If you're to the right of the landing area, stay on that side of the wind line as you fly your pattern. Above all, use common sense. If established procedures call for left-hand traffic, it doesn't make sense to cross in front of others when you can fly a clear approach to the other side. When it's time to join the pattern, enter the downwind where there's a gap in traffic and maintain a position relative to others. Pick a clear runway for your approach and landing, since spreading the group out is the best way to avoid traffic conflicts. If you're low or slow, fly close to the wind line. If you're high or fast, fly a wide pattern. Be extra alert for other traffic. You may need to shorten or extend your downwind to avoid a conflict, as you see here. On the base leg, widen the pattern if you're too steep or need to land short. If you're a bit too low or need to land long, turn in toward the landing area early. Continue to use the brakes to regulate your arrival time. On the final approach, be predictable, fly straight ahead, and maintain a constant speed and approach angle. The payoff for traffic awareness and courteous flying is a soft touchdown in a clear area. On the other side of the pattern, the benefits of vertical separation and dividing the traffic flow are obvious. This jumper has the sky to himself. Clear of traffic, the pattern can be adjusted whatever way is necessary for greater landing accuracy. On final, avoid target tunnel vision and watch for jumpers moving on the ground. A conflict noticed early on final is easier to correct. Often a slight turn will work. Once you're on the ground, stay heads up to avoid landing traffic, just in case someone's following a little too close. When you debrief, include the canopy flight. After all, it's an essential part of the skydive too.
Okay, first thing you don't want to do is decide you have to turn back into the wind. You never have to get back into the wind at the expense of doing a hook turn. If you're too low and you realize you're at 50 feet, you're going downwind, you're committed to that direction. You probably won't be able to run the landing out. You'll have your canopy speed plus the wind speed. You'll bleed some of the canopy speed off with the brakes, but you probably have to roll out of the end of it. But I've seen way too many people decide at 75, 50 feet that they're downwind. Oops, I'm making a mistake. I got to get back into the wind and just grab a toggle and turn. A lot of people go to the hospital doing that.
Fly to your normal flare altitude. Do the best flare you ever did. Put your feet and knees together and get ready to do the roll. A lot of people get really nervous about fast landings and try to get their canopy back into the wind. At 60 feet, that would be a situation that could be pretty critical. Well, actually, it's not could be, is critical to trying to turn back into the wind at that time. If you slow your descent rate down, if you can stop your descent rate to the ground, then what's going to happen is you're going to trip off your feet and you're going to tumble. And the actual strength of the drop or the impact is very light, because the canopy will just lay you down. The canopy still supports you. So it's not like your feet touch and it throws you down to the ground. That doesn't happen. You're going to trip off your feet, you're going to lay on your side. Then the thing to do is keep your feet and knees together, because as you flip, you want to keep your limbs protected so that you don't start flailing around, because then when you go over, that's when you could have a problem. So the thing to do is flare at normal altitude, get it in a protected position, roll into it, and just tuck up. Continue to roll till you stop rolling. When you stop rolling, dust yourself off.
What do you do if you land? What if you open crosswind or downwind? Basically, you want to check your penetration into the wind, your track across the ground. Are you making any headway? If not, well, even if you are, you should always be seeking an alternative landing area. Fly defensively, skydive defensively. Always say, well, what if this goes wrong? What am I going to do? If I don't make it back to the drop zone, or if I get traffic that causes me to not be able to land in my original intended landing spot, where am I going to go? I always do that. Whenever I visit a new drop zone, whenever I get out on a relative work jump and I'm in free fall on a 200-way formation, I'm looking down below saying, well, this doesn't look like a very good spot. Where am I going to land when I open up 30 seconds from now at 2,000 feet? Think ahead. Skydiving is not for slow people. You have to think ahead. You have to be quick. Just like when you're driving down the highway in traffic in New York City and things are moving along and you're saying to yourself, I've got to be prepared for all of this traffic to come to a halt, because the traffic always does that. It always does that. Expect the unexpected.
Shifting winds, a crosswind jump run, or a blown spot may put you under an open canopy off the wind line. On this jump, you'll be introduced to exit planning for crosswind jump runs and canopy control techniques for opening off the wind line and using alternate landing areas.
You ready to skydive?
Yep, sure am.
Well, let's take a look at the winds aloft, see where we're going to exit. Well, the winds aloft are real strong. They're from a different direction than the winds at opening altitude.
See, the ground winds are 180 degrees off the uppers.
Okay, they've been making a jump run to the north today, and I think this is about as far as we could get out if we still want to make all of our alternates right here. Okay, we got a plan. Let's go make a skydive. Let's get out of here.
Always check the spot before exit. If you're first out, take a look when the door opens. If you're in a following group, look out and check the spot while you wait for safe separation. If it looks good, then climb out and exit. If you are long and off the wind line, head toward the landing area right away, then complete your after opening routine. As you head to the landing area, check the wind direction by using the accuracy trick to find the stationary point.
If that point is very close to underneath my feet, there's a lot of wind and I'm headed into it. If the point is way off far towards the horizon, I probably have a strong tailwind. If the point is off to one side or another, I'm crabbing across a wind.
Since you're off the wind line, crab to track directly to the DZ while you determine your landing options. If the stationary point is considerably beyond the target, continue toward the planned landing area. If the stationary point is close to the target, use the brakes or rear risers to extend your glide. If you will still land short, but the flight path to the planned landing area is clear, keep going until you need to turn into the wind for landing. If you will still land short and there are obstacles along the flight path, immediately select a safe alternate. The higher you make this decision, the larger the cone of possibilities. Use the accuracy trick to find the stationary point. That point is as far as you can travel in the direction you are moving. When there's no wind, you can travel this same distance in any direction. Wind tips the cone like this. Selecting an alternate well within this area gives you the best chance of making a safe landing. As you track directly to the alternate landing area, continually scan for any obstacles. Remember, obstacles downwind may require a steep approach. Upwind obstacles may cause turbulence on landing. As you close in on the landing area, make a close check for landing hazards and select your runway, preferably into the wind. Be alert for traffic. Others may have selected the same alternate. If you suspect the wind strength has changed considerably since takeoff, turn perpendicular to the winds and check your drift.
It's best to break it down into simple categories. It's either there's next to no drift, meaning that it's low wind and go. There's a lot of drift, which means it's high wind, and then anything in between falls into a medium.
I do that in full glide and see if there's some sort of a crab angle. And I also do it in deep brakes to see how much that crab angle changes.
Determine the pattern size based on the wind speed and turn onto the downwind. Fly a normal pattern as much as possible, but stay close enough to the field to always be able to land in a safe area. In other words, don't fly a pattern too big for the winds. Use the base leg to adjust your pattern for the winds and traffic. If your approach looks good, crab to correct for the winds. If you're a bit too high, fly a wider pattern. If you're too low, tighten the pattern. Continue to check the area for landing hazards, then pick your intended touchdown point. On final, use the accuracy trick to find the stationary point and monitor your approach. If you're too high, the winds are light, and traffic permits, use S-turns to lose altitude. In higher winds, the brakes are effective in flying a steeper approach. If you're too low and the winds are light, brake application may allow you to stretch your glide. Just before landing, be alert for turbulence. Make a final check for hazards and be prepared to PLF, especially if the ground is obscured by tall grass.
Well, looks like we missed the spot a little bit short, a little bit off the wind line.
Yeah, we had a nice alternate place to land.
Well, at least we got a ride here. All right, this is much better.
Hop in.
All right. Thanks a lot, Marcus. You're a lifesaver, brother. Yep, you should have learned not to let me spot a long time ago. I'm gonna learn soon, though. That wasn't too bad. Can we go now? Let's go.
Turning the canopy and crabbing across the wind line can give you some idea of the canopy's lateral drift toward the target. The way that would work is you see my canopy's flying across wind, so my progress toward the target could only happen by the wind drifting or pushing me along. I know when people first start to recognize these things, it doesn't become quite apparent. But it just takes a little more. It just takes some work. You know, it takes some work on on a number of jumps and different conditions, just to be able to get a feel for it.
One of the good things to do is look for smokestacks. If you can find out which way the smoke is blowing, it tells you which way the wind is blowing, at least on the ground. You can also check, as a reference, check some other canopies that open before you and watch which way they're landing. And if they're not falling down and going 50 miles an hour, when they land, they're probably upwind. Another indicator is if you can find a lake, the upwind side of the lake will have a smooth area, and the downwind side of the lake will have all the ripples, so that'll tell you which way the wind is blowing. But again, that's only on the ground. Under canopy, you can use the ground as a reference. It's rather subtle. The higher you get, the more subtle it is. But if you face what you think is into the wind, check your ground speed. If you're not going very fast, then and you turn 180 degrees and check the ground reference again, and it's going by fast, then that tells you which way is upwind, which way is downwind.
Hook turn landings have been with the sport since I started in '77, and they were probably there well before then. People used to hook the round high-performance parachutes. But with today's parachutes, hook turn landings are a whole new way to kill yourself. To me, hook turn landings, if you want to call them that, are something that is learned over a period of thousands and thousands of jumps, making very, very small graduations in increasing the speed. One of the best things you can do about learning how to do hook turns is stay on a canopy that's fairly large and at a reasonable wing loading. When you slow things down to begin with, you have more time to make good judgments.
There are lots of high-performance landings, lots of different kinds of high-performance landings, and they can be done safely and they can be done unsafely. You have to know a lot about your parachute. Most of it's done way up high, and learning exactly the timing of things, and also understanding a lot about turbulence, crowds, people on the ground, people in the air, traffic, and things like that. There's more to it than just going up there and pulling down a riser and pulling down a toggle and timing it just right. You've got to understand how your parachute's flying. You've got to understand the concepts of balance on your wing, how fast to enter a turn, and what to do if you blow it. You have to know how to get out. Never initiate a turn you can't finish before you hit the ground.
Whether it's a sweatshirt, custom shirt, or something a bit more formal, Jumper Sportswear is the largest supplier of clothing for the sport of skydiving. Jumper Sportswear, distinctive wearing apparel for the skydiver. World-class athletes are not simply born, they are created through hard work and determination, but most importantly, through a mindset. Go Fast Sports is designed to create that mindset. Contact your local dealer. From carbon fire helmets to leather hats, Cypress service to altimeters, Parachute Equipment Corporation is your one-stop sales and service center. PEC, honest answers about quality products. For over 30 years, SSE has set the standard in altimeters for sport and military use worldwide. The Jumpmaster is worn by more skydivers than any other. SSE, the skydiver's choice. If the worst happens and you can't pull, this small package can make a big difference. Student, expert, or tandem, AirTech has a Cypress pack opening system for your skydive. Cypress, the world's most reliable AAD.